And so our next guest is Shonda Allen Hill. She's a motivational speaker and she has a new book out. And she has she's an author and motivational speaker. And her book is about the top 5 conversation traps to avoid. And I don't know if I've heard the term conversation trap before. Um, I know there's some kind of music called trap. I don't know what it
I don't think
is.
that's what she's
I
talking
don't think
about.
that's what she's talking about. I still don't know what trap music
No,
is, but
but I think I know what she's talking about. I want to let her explain it,
yeah.
but I'm down for the conversation trap because I think that a lot of us may have fallen into that trap where you're having a conversation with somebody, you hear their point of view, and all of a sudden your mind tells you that their point of view is the right thing, and then you change your entire way of thinking based on what that person said. But I think that's what you're talking about, Shonda, but come off mute. Come off
Oh,
mute.
yeah. Let's see.
Mute.
We haven't heard anything you've said
There we
yet,
go.
Shonda.
Can you hear me
Okay.
now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen, I love, well, you could tell I was tickled. I love you guys because you just run with it. Well, let me just you are close. So the conversation traps are similar to that. They are simply traps that we walk into productive folk who want to get things done. But we walk into these traps with people, and I have identified 5 of those. And these are traps that really just kind of take you off of your goals. I
Yes.
started saying to myself, I treat my conversations, my words, and my energy like money. So, how much am I spending a day? And I ask myself, can I afford this conversation? That's one
Mm.
of the things that I say. Can I afford to have this conversation? And so, conversation traps started with, actually an issue I had with my husband and I. We don't see eye to eye, in terms of our financial systems. Okay. And so our values are the same, but our system is different. I would repeat, ladies, I would repeat over and over and over again. We just didn't connect. I was burning so much energy and I exhausted myself. Okay. But I didn't have the ingenuity and the creativity to actually do what I was trying to convince him that I thought I needed him to help me do.
Mm. Wait, keep going with that. That's intriguing.
Yeah. And so what I realized is that I was wasting a lot of time trying to influence, cajole, trying to, bring my point across, get somebody to understand where I'm coming from. And honestly, every time I approached the subject, it just wasn't there. Everybody has those situations. That's
Yes.
called the Groundhog Day trap in the book.
Oh, okay.
It's the one that says, listen, you know how this conversation is going to end. You already know how this conversation is going to end, trap. And so you exhaust yourself. You don't have the energy and the ingenuity and the creativity to actually solve the problem. Stop talking about it. Skip over that part. Save that energy and use it to actually do what you want to do. And one of the things I wanted to do was financial freedom. And so once I stopped trying to convince my husband about it and all of those things, I retired at 51 debt free.
Now,
Nice.
did you end
Wow.
up going back to work? Or
I
you,
ended
I
up
mean, are
starting my
you,
business.
are
I'm about
you?
to say, because I saw your boss was trying to get you to come back.
So when you retire, what did that mean exactly? Retirement means different things to different people, especially at an age that's younger than your typical retirement age of 65 or older.
Yes. So it really does mean just doing the things that I really wanted to do. That's what it meant. So yeah, I'm just as busy as I was almost when I was working, but the idea that I can freely,
Yeah.
decide what I want to do, it makes a big difference. And I promise you, it all started when I just said, you know what? I've got to, even at work, I had to stop trying to convince people to do things. If you want me to shift this pile of paper from one stack to the other for 8 hours, That's on you. I mean, why am I going to spend a whole bunch of energy trying to, convince people of something that they don't necessarily want to be convinced of? And so, yeah. So that's what I started to do, and my life began to change. It was so exciting. I mean, I began to win awards and all different types of things that actually I wasn't vying for them. It was just people that noticed that, something is really different about her. I was like, yeah, I'm not burning my energy on, I'm not burning my energy on, things that really don't matter. So
Well,
yeah.
it's I guess my question goes along with what you just said and the story you told us about you and your husband not seeing eye to eye on finances. So, it took more than just a mind change. Did you have to change some behaviors? And then how were you able to align your thinking with your husband's thinking or vice versa?
Yeah, that's very good. You know what? The mind shift definitely comes first. I think the first thing that I had to decide, and this is the secret. It's like there's really a secret here. Um, the point of the book, and out of this is why I wrote the book. Okay. The point of this is how to be heard when others don't listen. But the secret
Mm,
is this: when what you want matters more to you than being heard. That was the biggest shift I had to make. When my goals, when wanting to retire early, when wanting to have my first, $1,000 a month or 10K month, in revenue, when wanting to like transform something in my neighborhood, when something really mattered more than me wanting to be heard, that was the secret that really shifted things for
I
me.
like that.
Yeah. And so after that, I really began to say, okay, now what do I do? Now I need to put in a plan. So the first thing is I had to really start mindfully thinking, what is it? Give me these indicators of why I keep falling into these particular traps or what's wasting all of my time. That was one of the biggest things. It's actually identifying. You need an identifier, something that clicks with you before you walk into it. And so that's why I kind of made this really simple and just listed five. And, I'll give two. But after the five, after those traps and you identify them, you need to have a plan. You need to practice. It's just like working out or doing anything else. You need to practice that, you know what? When I identify that this issue has come up, okay, now what do I say?
Right.
And so I just give phrases and I practice this. I practice it over and over and over again. So that when I came up on the issue, I can just say it's already rehearsed. Okay, like number one with my husband and I, when we got ready to talk about finances, Gwen, we already knew how this conversation was going to end.
Mm,
You know what I said? This is the Groundhog Day one. I would run into it all the time. I would say, baby, you got this. Nothing more, nothing less.
Well, there's
Baby,
two
you
things
got
that
this.
come to my mind about what you've been saying. One is that not all conversations are fruitful. And I say that to mean that sometimes if both people aren't willing to listen if to the other person, it's not fruitful. I was at a friend of mine's retirement. She had an event, a dinner event or lunch. It was like early dinner, late lunch time frame. But and so we were at a table where we didn't necessarily all know each other. There was one gentleman at the table that never stopped talking.
mm.
He talked from the time I was there for 2 hours. He never stopped talking. And he didn't leave any room for anybody else to talk. He knew it all. He would make a statement, and then if someone disagreed, he'd just talk all over them. So the person that I was sitting across from We were listening to what he was saying, and he said, "Do you agree with that?" The one sitting across from me. I said, "No, but I've learned not to waste my time talking to people who know it all and they don't want to hear somebody else's opinion. It's a waste of energy."
Yeah,
So some conversations are not fruitful. And
that's
so
correct.
so I don't know if that's in your trap, the trap
No,
scenario.
you did wonderful. It's called the frivolous talk trap. That is one of them.
Okay.
It is
Oh,
one.
that traps in your book.
It's in the book. It's in the book. I mean, you have there, it's called the frivolous talk trap. And now in this case, you want the relationships to work. You want, usually this book is surrounding, you want things to actually work out, and you're not giving up on this book really refers to people that are kind of in these relationships with folks or in these even career relationships with people. You're not giving up on them. It's just that when you realize that you're not on the same page and you're not necessarily about to come together right now, the best way to unify is to do it, you know, either on different in different platforms. You need to find a way where you can come together and just say on a very limited basis. So that's the whole point about this book. So yeah, you got it with the gentleman across the table. That's
Yeah,
frivolous
well, you
talk.
know, he said that his wife divorced him or whatever, and I, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, because you never let her get a word in. I know if you talk like this with strangers, imagine how he was at home, just on and on. He knew everything about everything. He had all the answers, and he never let anybody give it. Really, if you tried to even give an opinion, he would cut you off. So, but he knew it all emphatically. So there was, and he never stopped talking. I was amazed. That's one of the few times I've seen somebody do that.
Wow.
Even when we were eating, I think he was still talking. I don't know if he ever stopped to eat the meal. He was talking while he was eating. It was just it was different. And then some people, when the relationship is very close and your personalities are just opposite, those are difficult as well,
Right.
where your personalities
Mm-hmm.
don't mesh
Mm-hmm.
together.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
That's right.
you see one thing and they see something else, and it's the same thing. You're looking at the same thing, but they see it one way and you see it another way.
That's right. And you're not going to necessarily, and listen, everybody's just not ready at certain seasons and points in life to, make certain decisions. But that
Mhm.
doesn't mean that you have to put your life on hold and the goals that you have, okay,
I like that.
waiting
That's
on
true.
someone else to make up their mind.
Right.
That's number five. It's called the indecisive trap. There are, let's just go down them. It's the Groundhog Day trap. You already know how this conversation is going to end. And this is Rhonda, right? I love Rhonda. It's Rhonda. Am I saying
Yeah.
that correctly, Rhonda? Okay.
Rhonda.
Because I'm
Yeah,
Shonda.
yeah.
I love that.
Just
I
one
love it.
letter difference.
I
So,
love,
mhm.
yeah. And so you have the Groundhog Day. You already know how this conversation is going to end. You have the yes trap. People call that the people pleasing. I always say that you're not going to necessarily say no to some people. So let's just be honest. You're not going to say no to Aunt Susie, Uncle Carl. There are some people you're not. So you need to train yourself to say yes differently. Okay.
I
Mhm.
like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yes.
maybe not necessarily saying no, but saying yes differently.
That's right.
Or no differently.
Or no differently.
You can
Yeah,
you can
but I like the idea of saying yes differently because I think sometimes we say yes at a loss for ourselves, but
Yeah.
there's a way to say yes where we can still benefit from it. So
That's
I
right.
like where you're going with that, Shonda.
That's right. That's right. And you have to listen, we have to do this because we keep saying yes to people and you lose yourself. You're going to keep saying yes and you're going to lose yourself, frustrated with yourself that you're fulfilling all of their life's calls and duties and the things
Yes.
they need, but somehow what you're supposed to do is not quite as important. So that's number two. And then there's number three, the delayed enlightenment trap. Now, this is very important. I tell you, especially if you have children. I'm a college student right now. It's the point where they wake up way after. I mean, you've told them so. You knew the right answer the first time they came to you. But, you know, they didn't wake up to it until, months later or a year later. Here's the idea about,
or years later.
or years later,
They have to see it for themselves. Now, I was telling the audience, my daughter got married Saturday. So, yeah, it was a beautiful wedding. But, there's some things over the years, I would tell her things. And she, it's just like when my parents try to tell me things. She wouldn't hear me. She would hear me, but she wouldn't hear me. You know what I mean? And then something would happen to make it plain that what I was trying to tell her was the absolute truth. And then she said, "Well, Mom, don't say I told you so." And I said, "Why not? Why are you taking that away from me? When when I tell you so many times and you didn't see it." But that's a lot of times we can't see things until they happen to us. Someone can tell you over and over, but until it happens to you or someone close to you, sometimes it doesn't have to be happening to you directly. It can happen to someone close to you. Then you can see it. But until then, it's just theoretical.
right.
It's not
Mm-hmm,
actual.
hmm. That's, I love how you said that. You said sometimes it takes years. It,
Yes.
It's
unfortunately,
true.
it
Yeah.
could, and but your daughter has a good point, and I make that argument, Gwen, that the trap is to not say "I told you so." And the reason why, Rhonda and Gwen, I say that is because every person does deserve a noiseless awakening. Okay.
Yes, I love that. A
They
Okay.
noiseless
That's good.
awakening.
they
That's
deserve
good.
that. And because what you're saying to them is now just clicking on the surface, but you talking is going to interrupt the actual process of it getting down deep and them really processing. So when you're talking, you're kind of still throwing, interference and waves out there. So
Right.
just let it settle. Just let it settle. It's hard. Oh God, I failed that one so many times. That one, but I'll throw the last ones out. It's the frivolous talk. And those are the ones that we talked about where people, for some reason, just feel the need to talk about nothing and to waste your time doing it. It's the around the at work when people are kind of around the, what do they call it? The cooler talk and
Yes.
all
The
of
water
that.
cooler
Yeah,
talk.
Water
Yes.
water
cooler
cooler
talk.
talk. And by the way, corporations, I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago, they reported that they lost 1.5 trillion with a T dollar.
Wow.
Okay. In folks having frivolous, out of office talk time. That's quite a bit of money. So I couldn't imagine what persons with no deadlines, no bosses, no supervisors, I can't imagine what we do. I said, wow, I'm not even gonna add that up.
It's so funny you say that, Shonda. When I was in the army, I was stationed. I deployed to Iraq,
Mhm,
and I would go to. We had like office hours because I wasn't out there with the infantrymen, but we had office hours. We come in about 8:39 or whatever, and then we go back to our rooms around 5 o'clock. I
mhm.
always left at 5. Other people would leave at 6, 7, 8 o'clock. And they would always say, well, Sergeant Lawson leaves at 5 o'clock. I say, you know why Sergeant Lawson leaves at 5 o'clock? Because I don't take smoke breaks. I'm not hanging out in other people's offices and at other people's desks talking about this, that, and the other. I'm at my desk doing my work. So when I leave at 5 o'clock, that means I'm done. I don't have anything else to do. But see, y'all sit there and want to go visit each other's desks. You want to go hang out. You want
Yeah,
to take an hour and a half lunch. You want to take
Yeah, I was
smoke
gonna say
breaks
the
all
long
throughout the
lunch
day.
breaks.
So you wind up staying longer
Mhm.
to finish up your work.
I love it. Exactly. Exactly. And they're supposed to be doing something else with that evening time.
Right.
I mean,
Yes, yeah,
who
and then
decides?
they don't have a relationship with their families. And
Yeah.
then 10 years later or 15, when they really don't have a relationship, they wonder what the heck happened.
What
And,
happened?
they were too busy. Now,
Hmm.
we don't have that much time left. I want to have you talk about what you started with, and that was a financial conversation with your husband, because finances is one of the big issues in marriage. I've been married 32 years, and my daughter's just getting started, and I told her, you being on the same accord with finances is very important, because a lot of bad things can happen when you're not on one accord. And you know it's better to know that before you get married, but some people don't. They don't realize how important that is. But some people just spend money. They just are spenders. They don't really plan, they don't budget, they just spend money. And then some people are responsible and budget and save. And having those two meld together, that's conflicting if you have somebody who just spends, because the responsibility is always on the person who's planning and saving.
Well, it can be. So what I did was this. I, instead of, consistently talking about it, fussing about it, and listen, let me say this. There are people who are free spirits. Okay, that's the term for folks who spend spontaneously. And then you have
That's
and then
what it's called.
that is
Okay.
one of the terms. And then you have the conventionalists. You have folks who plan it out. I'm a conventionalist. My husband's more of a free spirit. I can't
Hmm.
necessarily say that one is right and one is wrong. I will say, though, it is difficult when you marry someone who's not. Okay. But sometimes that also makes life fun. Here's the thing that I learned. I stopped trying to make my husband a conventionalist. I said, you know what?
Okay.
If you want
It's
to
true.
go out and to do whatever it is you want to do, that's fine. However, what I did do was I made sure I separated meticulously. I have a completely different financial system.
Mm.
100% completely different financial system. Okay. And what I did is and that was one of the things. That's why I said I've lived it. My husband and I have been married now. We're going on 26 years. It was very difficult. Sometimes you wonder, are you gonna make it? He just made a purchase
Mm.
not too long ago, and I said, "Ooh," but then I said, "You know what? Wait, stop, hold back. That's your purchase." Because one of the things I did was when I got debt free, I wanted to make sure that I had a debt free base where I can now make whatever financial decisions I make. Here's the point, I think, when in writing this book is this: other people are going to make their own decisions. They're
Yeah.
going to do that, Gwen and Rhonda. They're going to do it with or without you. Okay. The point is are you going to waste all the needed energy that you have
Uh-oh.
on going back and forth with them, okay, on trying to get their mindset like your mindset? And or are you going to change your mindset to say, I don't necessarily need you thinking like me. I just need to have a point of unity with you.
Come
And then I
on.
can use that energy.
Let me go ahead and order this book right now,
Listen,
Shonda.
listen, let me tell you, just because your husband is a free spender, yeah, it's on Amazon. Just because your husband is a free spender, what does that have to do with you, Rhonda and Gwen, being a millionaire? Nothing. Nothing. It does not. I know it's a new mindset, but what does that have to do with you being you know what I mean? Nothing, not one thing. There are
Well,
things that,
I hear you. Now,
oh yeah.
I've been married twice.
Hmm.
Okay. The first time it was to, I don't know if you call it a free thinker or just irresponsible as hell person.
Love
And
and honesty.
the person does affect you
They do.
if they are doing things to create crises that you then have to put fires out because it affects you.
That's right.
So it can, depending on how far they go. There are degrees to it. I
Mm.
That's
think
right.
my first husband was on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most irresponsible. He was a 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I knew I didn't want that when I married my husband of 32 years. And we had a meeting of the minds before we got married.
Yes.
So, it's important to have the conversation before you get married.
Absolutely. And
Now,
listen, this is not for narcissists and abusers and people
right.
who are crazy. I am
Right.
Like
not
that. Yes.
okay, let's put the that's not for these people.
Okay.
Well, Shonda, I see that your book is available in three different formats. It's on Kindle, it's in paperback, and it's on audio. Did you voice the audio yourself?
I didn't. I did not. And you know what? That's the first question folks ask. So when you please, please, recorded yourself. I'm going to record myself next time. But
Well, you
yeah.
have such a great voice.
You do have a good
I'm
speaking voice.
listening to you
Thank
as you're
you.
speaking, and I could just imagine if you had voiced it yourself, the passion that would have been behind the words.
I love it. I'm going to go back just because you said that, Rhonda. Thank you.
Yeah. Or on your next book, try it.
Yeah.
I
You know,
will. Y'all
try
are
that.
great.
No,
Mhm.
but I'm serious though. I'm really going to download this because I think that this is so freeing for people who struggle to be heard. And just like you said, what's more important, being heard or fulfilling your goals? Basically, I
Yes,
just want my goals to be fulfilled.
exactly.
Yeah, and when I'm at work, I just want my team to do their jobs. I
That's
don't have to go back and forth and shout and argue. And so that's why I say this is freeing just having this conversation right now. So
yeah.
I'm really looking forward to actually reading the book.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I tell you, and there's some pretty good reviews out there. So I've had a gamut of folk who've tested it out, from the East Coast to the West Coast. And so, I wanted to beta test it first to see if I was on track, but I think we're on to something.
Okay.
Right. I
A
love
lot
it.
of times in conversations, that's what you were kind of referring to, Ron. The less is more. You know,
Hmm.
you don't have to use a gazillion words to get your point across. And sometimes if you see that it's not getting through, you have to, for using a military term, retreat and reform and come back another day.
Yeah,
Rethink it.
that's
Because
good.
sometimes you may not get through the way you want the first time, but if you retreat and rethink it, you can approach it differently and get through another in the future. The next day or the next week or whatever.
Yeah, that's good.
Mhm.
That's good. Awesome. Awesome.
Well, we're
Well,
at the end of our time,
Yeah.
Shonda.
oh
Uh,
yeah, it was
do you have a
great.
copy of your book, or I know I see it behind you, but do you have a, a paperback or whatever that you can put in front of the camera so we can see it a little bit closer? Do you have
I
something?
tell you, you know what? That's why I put it up here. I do have a paperback and I don't want to waste the time. I
Okay, all
don't want to
right.
fall
It's
into the
quite all
trap
right. I
of
would
That's
say
get
excellent.
it, but
I would say this, Shonda. As we go on now, give us a really quick last minute tip.
yeah, this is the last minute tip. One is this: you are worth it. You are worth every dime, every bit of energy that you put into every goal that you set for yourself. You are worth not having to explain yourself all the time to other people. You are worth not having to repeat yourself all the time to other people. You are worth it. So, my last words are this: just go for it, look straight ahead, stop talking so much, and put the energy that you would put into talking, put it into your actions.
Come on.
Okay, good advice. And thank you so much for being a guest on the show. And congratulations on your book.
Thanks so much. Thank you,
Thank,
ladies.
thank you. Have a
Okay,
great night.
You too. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
bye bye.